Listen only mode.
Okay, there we go. All right, so we should have everybody attending. We should have everybody there. Great. Are you ready to start, guys?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right, welcome to the webinar. I'm sorry for the slightly late start. That was my fault entirely. For some reason, our internet went down at 5 minutes to 11, which is just wonderful. So thank you all for attending. Can I just do a very, very quick sound check? You have the facility to raise your hands on the screen. If you can hear me, if you can hear us, can you just raise your hand? Just give us an idea that you're all there. Oh, this is good. This is what I like to see. Wonderful. There's some of you obviously can't raise your hand if you're phoning in, but that's great. Okay. Thank you very much. We will have the opportunity. We hope to last for about an hour, and we'll have a couple of breaks for you to have a cup of coffee and a scratch and so on, and a chance to perhaps share some ideas. We'll unmute you. You're all muted at the moment, but we can unmute you if we want to have a bit of a discussion later. So for now, I'm going to pass over to Sam to kick everything off. Over to you, Sam.
Okay, thank you. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sam Dancy. I'm the Supply Chain Manager for the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority. This morning we've got Tim Kemp, who you just heard, and Sarah Lodge from Beehive Coaching and Leadership Development, and they'll be going through the bulk of the training. So I'll just hand over to Tim again, who will talk about the process for the webinar.
As I said, thanks Sam. As I said, it's going to be about an hour long. It's kind of broken up into chunks, and we'll have a little bit of a break in between. We're also going to experiment with some polls to give you a chance to explore things and give us a little bit more interactivity. And also there'll be the opportunity to deal with any questions that you may have. We'll try and do that live, so if you want to have a bit of a discussion, that would be great. There's also the facility to send us questions as well, and we can kind of collect those up later. We'll give you email addresses and all that sort of thing. There is a chat facility, which we will try and monitor as we go along, and if you have any particular glitches or technical issues, then I'll have a go at trying to deal with them. Right. Okay. Over to Sarah.
Okay. Hi. Good morning, everybody. So just to briefly go through the aim of the webinar, which is to make sure that you have what you need to start your mentoring relationship with a volunteer mentor. And the structure of the webinar is, as Tim mentioned, there will be 4 sections. The part 1 about the scheme, we went through this on the initial webinar. So Sam's going to go through it very briefly and just remind people, and those people who didn't see this in the first webinar, you'll get the chance to understand a little bit more about the scheme. Then we're going to take a look at what mentoring is and think about some key skills and mentoring models that you can use, and then how you can make the most of the scheme. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand over to Sam Dancy to talk to you about the mentor scheme.
Okay, thank you. See if I can make the slide change. Oh, sorry, I've gone too far now. Okay, the purpose of the scheme, it's part of the NDA action plan, and it's really to help develop that mutual understanding and opportunity. So we get both large and small firms involved, really help the larger companies get an understanding of what life is like in the SME community. But also we've got some really good SME companies out there who've been in the industry for a long time, and they can help share the benefit of their knowledge and experience. And really the overall aim is to help equip SMEs be more effective in entering the NDA estate supply chain. We know it's not easy, but there are people who have done it and been successful. In terms of approach, we had our initial pilot last year. We were aiming for 20 to 30 companies. We actually had 40 volunteers from the mentor side and mentees. We have a very light touch in terms of NDA. We're sponsoring and hosting, but it's really aimed at you guys out there in industry sharing the benefits. And we do want it to be a two-way process so that the mentors get an insight and they also learn things as well. We've said mentees are SMEs, but as I said, mentors can come from any industry, any size. So we've got both large and small mentor companies. And we pair it on a simple application process that you've been through, which I'll talk about in a moment. In terms of commitment, we say it's a 12-month program, and we do have interim learning. Normally we try and have a sort of like 6-monthly session that we aim to hold around about the same time as the NDA supply chain event in November, and that gets mentees and mentors together just to get some learning and any improvements we can do on the scheme. Training for the scheme, so we've got Sarah and Tim from Beehive coaching. We've also done training sessions for the mentors just to give them the basics. And the commitment is what we found from last year. The really important thing is for you and your mentor to agree some ground rules up early and also think about the aims, the objectives you want to get out from the scheme. Minimum time commitment that we're asking from the mentors and yourselves is a couple hours per month, and ideally face-to-face on that first meeting. What we found is that it does vary. Some mentors have met up with their mentees sort of like maybe a few times during the year and then done other things by email and telephone, and maybe not necessarily every month. So it's really up to you to how you gain that relationship with your mentor and what works best for you. Importantly, what the scheme isn't, it's not about a cosy relationship. It's not a quick way to a contract. If you're coming into the scheme thinking it's a given that you're going to get a contract from coming out of it, it's not about that at all. And again, it's not free consultancy. It's you gain the benefit of the mentor's experience. So don't go in there expecting them to write a business plan for you or something. They may help you think about what you need for your plan, but it's not the free consultancy in that way. And it's not us mandating. We really believe in the SME agenda and supporting SMEs in our estate. And again, it's not about those big tier companies telling you what you should be doing, because you will both get mutual benefit from a relationship and helping, as I said, those bigger companies understand what you have to go through and the barriers that you may have. And again, it's not SMEs getting an unfair advantage. For our SME agenda, it's all about the value that you as SMEs can bring, whether it's like innovation, flexibility. In terms of our mentors, they're all volunteers. They're people who probably been in the industry a while. Some people may have specific areas of expertise, but they're there to offer their expertise and knowledge. And it's all of them, when we've gone through the mentor training, they want to give something back to the industry. And they also want to learn and develop too. In terms of the matching process, it's really not a perfect science. We try and base it on geography first so that we can help facilitate those face-to-face meetings, and then we look at the areas where you're seeking support and the areas where our mentors have that best knowledge that can help you. There is a possibility of not being matched this year. We've got around 30 mentors volunteered and just over 30 mentees. And I know there's potential we will get some more mentor volunteers. So we will really try our hardest to match you, but please don't be too disappointed if we can't. And hopefully we'll run the scheme next year and then we can put you at the top of the list for next year. Oops, sorry. And feedback from last year's mentees, they really did find benefit where it worked well. But there are instances maybe you don't get the right match with your mentor, and we have to perhaps relook, see if we can reassign. But they really did have benefit in terms of increased contacts and also giving that a bit of focus and trying better planning in terms of the direction for the business. and learning from last year's mentees, it's really, I think, there was an appreciation that it does take a long time to break into nuclear. Benefits might not materialise for 12 to 24 months, but 78% of the mentees who responded to our questionnaire felt that they had a greater chance of success in bidding for work, having that better understanding of the NDA estate and how it all fits together. We also found that although we had mentees on the scheme who were interested in getting into the market, they actually decided, working with the mentor, the market wasn't for them. And in some ways that's a success too, because it stops them sort of like pursuing opportunities that were really they could put their time better elsewhere. So that's a very quick run through of the aims of the scheme and where we're going. So I'm just going to pass back over to Tim now, who are going through what is mentoring.
Okay, thanks, Sam. All right. I don't know how many of you are still hesitant about this newfangled thing called mentoring, and are not going to be totally committed to it until you understand that it has a solid basis in Greek mythology. But as some of you may know, King Odysseus required somebody to look after his infant son and his wife Persephone when he went off to fight in the Trojan Wars, and so he called upon his old friend Mentor to look after them, and that's where the whole notion came from. He wanted somebody that would be a surrogate parent, really, a trusted advisor, an educator and a guide, a kindly elder, if you like. Now obviously he was away for a lot longer than he thought. It was about 20 years, and in the end the whole notion of mentoring became linked with the idea of somebody who would be looking after the young son. Which actually was the role that the goddess Athene took in the guise of mentor. But what we now have is a definition of mentoring that is perhaps a little bit more relevant to that. It's help, one person to another, helping people make significant transitions in their knowledge or their work or their thinking, and that's really what we're on about here. And of course, the reality is that a lot of people have had and benefited from mentors. Some people have even suggested that a lot of the well-known leaders and famous heads of organizations and heads of projects and heads of science have had mentors from time to time. So it has a noble heritage. This gives you a kind of an idea of how mentoring tends to be used. Notice that the words in bold, it's about easing transition, giving a sense of security, of reassurance. As adults, as people involved in business and projects and so on, it's often quite lonely. So the idea that you can have someone to give you a little bit of reassurance that you're not on your own, that you're doing something, that you're facing things that other people have faced, you're feeling the same anxieties, is kind of nice. Mentoring is also about passing on the kind of the tacit knowledge, the stuff that isn't necessarily formally taught through training and development, the kinds of how things are done here, the way things really work. The kind of informal knowledge that makes up so much of what we now call kind of expertise. And then it's also aimed at maximizing potential. A mentor has a unique insight, hopefully, a respect for the fact that the person is developing. They have no agenda. They're not in competition with that person. The person is not a threat to them in any way. You can actually focus on that person's development in a very kind of unselfish way, which is kind of gratifying. So what we'd like to do for a minute is to be a bit interactive here and ask you about your own experiences. So maybe you've had the opportunity to reflect a little bit on a previous experience of being mentored or mentoring others. And so we're just going to try out some polls here and get a sense of what, as a group of people, your experience is. So we have a poll. And the first poll that we're going to ask you, we have about 9 of them. So the first one that we're going to ask you at the moment is, have you ever been mentored by somebody in the past? With any luck, you should be seeing a poll on your screen now. Those of you that have access to a computer, could you just vote? And we will get a sense of what our constituencies are like. You can tell there's election fever in the air here. Okay, we've got just about everybody. I think that's just about everyone that can vote has voted, which is good. Okay, so I'm going to close that poll, and I'm going to share it with you. So you can see that about a third of you have been mentored formally, 42% informally, and a third not that you know of. Well, that's good. Okay, you never know. You might discover that you have been. All right, let's have a look at another poll. Have you ever mentored someone else now? So have you ever been in the position of mentoring someone else? So hang on a second. That wasn't very clever, was it? Here we go. You should see that one on your screen now. Okay, there we go. So with any luck you can see the results of that. Again, pretty similar. Pretty similar. Again, we're looking at about 70% of people have been have mentored other people. Okay. All right, and we're going to have a break. I don't know if you need to have a break or a pause, but what we've thought of is that we're going to do this presentation in chunks. So if you do want to go and have a break for a minute or two, but literally only a minute, that would be great. If anybody has a question, then now is a good time to ask, and we'll see if we can deal with those. We'll just take literally about 60 seconds just to stretch and scratch and perhaps have a quick cup of coffee. Sarah and Sam.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm recording this, so we will have a copy of it.
Great.
For later that we can circulate if anybody wants it.
Good.
And we have nobody wanting to ask us any questions.
Great stuff.
Okay. All right, do you want to kick off part 3?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. I do have a question. Yeah, Michael has just asked, what's the timescale for mentor-mentee allocation? Sam, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. I will come on to it later as next steps, but we're going to do the mentor matching this afternoon. What we then do is, where we've done that matching, we go back to the mentors to say, this is who we're suggesting you mentee. How does that look to you? If we're happy, fine, off we go. If not, then we come back and see whether we need to do some reshuffling. So it will take a week or two just to formalise all of that, and then we'll be saying to the mentors, yep, we're there, please contact your mentees to start organising your first session.
Great, thanks for the question, Michael.
Okay, are we ready to start part 3?
Go for it.
All right. So we thought it might be helpful for you, particularly for people who may not have mentored formally or been mentors formally before, for you to take a look at mentoring in the context of other kind of developmental interventions. So you can see on that graph there, you've got 4 developmental interventions: training, coaching, mentoring, consultancy across the top, and down the left-hand side, some particular points about each of those disciplines. So you can see that in terms of the aim of mentoring, it's more around career progression rather than the improving individual performance as coaching or skills for the job as training. And although there'll be some improving organisational performance, it's not from a consultancy perspective. It's much more in terms of providing people with advice and guidance, being more of a critical friend than a consultant. So mentoring is about fulfilling long-term potential. That's both of the individual mentee and of the organisation. The objectives are set by the client, and what people will be looking at, the mentors will be talking to you about, are your long-term aims, your skills and experience and those expectations, as opposed to your organisational systems and processes, for example, as you would through consultancy, or looking at how things ought to be done as you would through training. So that simply puts mentoring in context, looking at different organisational interventions. Now, a key skill for mentoring, as it is for any kind of communication, is that of listening, and we talk in this field about different levels of listening. Now, probably unbeknown to you, what you don't know is that what I can see is, I can see all of you attendees, and there's actually a function that enables me to see whether you're distracted in any way at all. So whether you're looking at something else or you've clicked out of the webinar or whatever, which is quite interesting really, because this is what happens in our minds when we're actually listening to people. And we may not get a sign coming up on a screen that says people are distracted, but we do pick up non-verbally whether somebody's actually listening to us or not, or whether their mind's elsewhere, and whether they're really listening to what we're saying, or whether we're just listening for what we want to hear from someone else. So I'm going to just hand over to Tim for a moment. It's a very, very easy poll, but it's a poll just to check who's been listening at the moment and whether anybody has been distracted or not.
Oh, there's even some honest people in the group. That's really good.
So the thing about webinars is nobody knows whether you're sat there in your pajamas or whatever. But
You said you wouldn't say anything.
there is a pajama symbol that comes up actually.
Okay, well let's close that one. You can have a quick look at what your colleagues are saying.
Yes. Okay. Well, you got the drift anyway, which is the important thing. All right. The next key skill for mentoring is that of goal setting. When we talk about setting goals before you start the mentoring process, so thinking about what you want to achieve as a result of the mentoring process, which might seem a bit of a strange thing because you might think, well, I don't know. How can I possibly know? But if you signed up for the scheme and you think there may be a potential benefit, it's helpful to clarify what you think that benefit might be for the following reasons. If you have a goal that you set at the beginning, it's motivational, it's aspirational, it gives you something to aim for. It also helps you keep the process on track so that you get what you want. You can judge success, and people with clearer outcomes achieve more than those that don't have outcomes. But also it's about you taking accountability for yourself and responsibility for you getting what you want from the mentoring process. I'm sure most people will be familiar with the SMART goal setting idea. So rather than having vague goals, making them specific, being able to measure whether you've achieved them, making sure that they're realistic so that they're attainable, they're relevant to what you want to do, and putting a time scale on them as well, so that they don't just disappear and run out of time. And another idea for goal setting is always to phrase goals in the positive. So rather than saying I'm not going to eat cake, saying I'm going to eat healthily, because otherwise all you focus on is cake. So talk about what you're going to do rather than what you're going to stop doing, because that helps with the motivational and aspirational aspect of it. And we're going to have another poll now. I'll hand over to Tim again.
We are indeed. How about that one? We're interested in trying to understand what your own particular objectives are for joining the mentoring scheme. There are five options there. Then that's not the complete list, but it would be kind of interesting just to find out which of those are the ones that you're most focused on. There's no right answer here, by the way. And again, okay, well, we'll close that and we'll share that one. Again, that's kind of interesting. That suggests that 60% are interested in business support and growing the business and perhaps help with tendering and so on, and about a quarter about getting a better understanding of the nuclear market, which is entirely understandable.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Good.
Great stuff. Thanks.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I haven't got the presentation up at the moment.
You haven't?
No. There we go.
Cool.
Right. This is a business mentoring scheme, but the mentors, as mentees, you're going to be individuals. Well, you are individuals, obviously. So it might help the mentoring process for you to reflect on yourself as an individual and whereabouts you are in your own career, and how mentoring might help you in terms of your personal career as well as in terms of the context of the business. So we've introduced this four-stage career model just to give you the chance to just reflect on whereabouts you think you might be in your career at the moment and what benefit you might get from mentoring at each of those stages. So the first stage is what we call the experimentation stage. And experimentation stage, now this doesn't necessarily happen in order, this isn't necessarily a linear model, but the experimentation stage of any career is where you're testing out different jobs or different careers. So it's very much moving on from job to job, not necessarily staying particularly a long time. You might travel, you're just trying things out. And in a business context, you might be doing things like trying out new products. So essentially there, you're just getting a sense of what there is available out there and what you like, what you're particularly drawn to. Now generally this happens earlier on in people's career, although you can get a midlife stage where you go back to an experimentation stage and you start testing out different kind of careers on the basis of perhaps opportunities that you didn't pursue when you were younger. Oh, sorry. The second stage is what we call experience accumulation, which is where you've decided on a particular area, so a particular field that you're interested in. And at this point, it's almost like you're building your CV at this point. So you're getting a deeper understanding of the job. You might have a number of different roles across that particular area that you're looking at. You're starting to experiment. You're building that knowledge and experience that you name and making a bit of a name for yourself. So you might get a series of promotions at that point in your particular field. The third stage is what we call full leadership, and this is quite a significant shift from the previous stage. And this is where you're starting, rather than responding to goals that have been set by other people or the organization for you, you're really starting to set your own goals rather than just meet targets. So you're thinking about, what is it that I want to get at? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? What do I want to be remembered for? What are my values in this particular field? And very often in full leadership, you're synthesizing, so you're coming up with something new, a new contribution to your particular field, which is based around your values very often. And the last stage is that of eldership, which is where really you've done everything that you want to do in your particular field, and what you're ready to do now is to move on by supporting leaders of the future. So you might step out of a key leadership role and you may start acting as a mentor or a non-exec director or a chair, passing on that tacit knowledge and that wisdom. Now you can be a mentee from any of these 4 stages, and you can actually mentor from any of these 4 stages as well. But sometimes it's helpful to know whereabouts in your career you are, so you can get the most benefit from the mentoring process. So I'm now just going to hand over to Tim again, and he's just going to run a poll. So just out of interest, having talked through those 4 stages and knowing that it's not, it's not definitive, it's not linear, which stage do you think you're in terms of your own career?
No, that's very interesting. I was talking to somebody recently who's convinced that after eldership you go back to experimentation again, which I thought was quite interesting.
Well, I do think that can happen at midlife. It's almost like you get a new lease of life. It's interesting, the person who came up with the idea of the midlife crisis, he did that after the age of 50, and it was almost like it was his second career, but he really fulfilled himself after the age of 50.
It wasn't Colonel Sanders, was it?
No, it wasn't Colonel Sanders. Although he was a bit of a late starter.
He was. Okay, there you go. There's the results.
Many people at full leadership, and that's a very that's a stage where mentoring can really help in terms of getting you to think in terms of legacy and what mark you might want to make on the profession. The experience accumulation, again, mentoring can help there in terms of pointing you in the right direction for gaining the experience, gaining the contacts that you might need in order to progress and develop. And experimentation, mentoring can help there in terms of helping you to get the most out of the different things that you're trying out, and helping focus on what is most helpful for you at that particular time. Okay, that's interesting. Thanks very much for that. And this is a business mentoring process, so we also thought what would pop in is 3 stages of SME development. So this is a model that looks at how SMEs tend to develop, and it's a simple model, which I quite like, being simple. And this again isn't a linear model. So you can recycle, you might be in a number of different stages at the same time, but it can be helpful sometimes just to think about where the organization might be. Now the chaos stage is the stage where the SME is in a process of real growth. So your sales are growing very, very dramatically, and the focus tends to be on, in the short term, on sales growth. It's characterized by an owner-manager working very long hours and doing covering a lot of functions. I'm a respondent to the YouGov surveys, and they sometimes ask, in your job, what are you responsible? Are you responsible for HR? Are you responsible for finance? Are you responsible for business development? Are you responsible for IT? And I tick yes, because as an owner-manager of a very small business, then yeah, that tends to be what I cover. There's a reliance on key individuals, not functions, and you can that's characterized by the fact that if a single person left your organization, you'd have real difficulties because there's a reliance there. And there's a lot of firefighting, there's a lot of, like I say, learning by experience, and the procedures and processes aren't clear at that particular point. An organization that goes through chaos can either collapse under its own weight, so can't service the growth and therefore kind of disappears in a way, or has to go back to basics in order to put the infrastructure in place to enable it to sustain the growth and to continue growing. So at the stability stage, it's almost like you're putting in a necessary bureaucracy and process in place. So this is all about clarifying goals, the direction that people are wanting to go in. It's about agreeing roles and responsibilities, developing functions, understanding the management processes, and in particular the owner-manager needing to step away from hands-on work and to start delegating and trusting other people and to start leading from the front. And if you move through that stage, and not all organizations move through that stage, they can remain highly bureaucratic and kind of rules and process bound. But the next stage, which is high performance, is really focusing on why you're doing what you're doing. So this is about really thinking about mission, the values of the organization, engaging with employees and using the potential of your employees much more. It's about innovation, it's about telling inspirational stories within the organization and outside of the organization, and good communication structures and information sharing. And that distinctive culture, if you think of culture as being the personality of an organization, then your organization is starting to develop a really distinctive personality. And we're going to just go back to Tim, because I'd be really interested in finding out what stage you think your organization is at, assuming that you feel that you can identify your organization in any one of those stages.
That's right, because sometimes, of course, it's not absolutely clear.
No.
And sometimes it just may feel like chaos all the time, wherever you are.
Yes. Like when your internet goes down 5 minutes.
Oh, yes, tell me about it, yeah. Okay, that's just about everybody. Okay.
Okay. So we've got quite a mix, really. But interesting that everybody, it seems, has been able to recognize the 3 stages and place their organization at one of those 3 stages.
Yeah.
And that can help you think about what you might need from your mentor in terms of areas of guidance.
I think it is quite interesting too, just as a quick comment, that one of the things that the model doesn't look at particularly is the environment around us, and when that is changing, when the environment is changing, even though we might be in a relatively stable state, it's going to feel more chaotic because the world around us is changing. And, you know, it's a bit like being, you know, on a very, very well built ship. When the sea is a mill pond, it's very stable and so on, but when the sea is rough and turbulent, then it's going to feel quite chaotic, and sometimes it's hard to know the difference between those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Great stuff.
Okay. Just take a very short break. A chance again for anyone to send some questions in if you have them. We'll just take 10 or 15 seconds just to check with you if there's anything that people want to ask, or if there's any comments that people want to make. Those of you that can, put your hand up, or those who want to, send us type in a question, and we'll see if we can deal with it. It's just really a chance to touch base with you guys. And there aren't too many distracted signs up on your list, which is really good. We must be doing something right here. This is excellent. Okay, doesn't look like there are any questions. So shall we move on to part 4, the last part?
So this is about how you make the most of the mentoring process. And we'll start off just with a slide about the kind of things that might go wrong in a mentoring relationship. So there may be maybe that mentees expect that the mentor will give them all the answers to the questions that they have, or that they're expecting things to happen quickly. And from the feedback of past mentees, we can see that it doesn't happen quickly. We're talking about years rather than months very often. That people might become too busy to engage with it or start to lose interest, which ties in with the 4th point, which is not enough communication between the mentor and mentee. And I was mentee last year on the scheme, and I would simply say, keeping that communication going, even if you're just telling your mentor that at the moment you're in a busy period, you'd like to pick it up in a few weeks, but right now isn't the best time. That's just enough to keep the relationship going and keep the mentor interested as well, because the mentor's getting satisfaction from this and needs to feel that they're part of the process as well. Sometimes it can be a bad fit with the mentor, although I don't think that happened very often at all last time, in which case you may need to go back to Sam, for example. And,
yeah, if you do.
Yeah, feel that that's an issue.
Just before you move on, Sarah, talking about going back to Sam, there's a question. Victoria's got a question.
Oh, okay.
She said, do the answers on the polls have any influence on who we could be assigned to? That's a rather interesting question,
No.
Sam.
No, the polls are for interest as we go through the training, but the main focus will, as I said, will be geography and the areas of interest that you've put on your application forms.
And we have no way of knowing who said what.
No.
On the polls. They're all aggregated. But thanks for the question, Victoria.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So the first session of the mentoring process, and this idea of getting the best from mentoring, is how you avoid those things that can lead to the mentoring process not working as well as it could do. The first session is really about building the relationship with your mentor. So this is a developmental process, and therefore it's relationship led. So it will be as good as the relationship that you can build with your mentor. So that first session, as Sam said, it works best if it's face-to-face to build that relationship. And it's about information gathering and how you set the goals, what you want to achieve by the end of it, and how you set boundaries as well. And we had a little bit of a joke about it being a little bit like a first date in a way. So you're sussing each other out and whether or not you're going to be able to build a relationship together. Although there were some comments about, I must have had some very strange first dates, if that's no idea.
I think also, if I just add something to that, we've gone through similar things in terms of the mentor training. We've sort of like gone through similar things for them, and we've had mentors come back for a second year. They enjoyed it so much the first year and got so much out of it. And that it's a, where do you have your first meeting? Is it at your premises? Is it on neutral ground? And again, it's something to think about, because it's helpful for the mentees to come to see where you are and understand the business, but equally, will you be too distracted if you're in your office and the phone's going and people are coming in?
Yeah, really good point. Yeah, great stuff. So in terms of that relationship building, some of the things that it will be helpful for you to be prepared to discuss might be your goals. Now, these aren't necessarily goals to do with the NDA. It could be personal goals, it could be organisational goals. You could talk about your career to date, and you might link it to the career stages, because we covered career stages in the mentor training. What you might want to achieve longer term, whether you've had feedback about strengths or development areas, sharing a business plan or whatever, and talking about the stage of development you think your organisation might be at. And again, we covered those 3 stages in the mentor training. So that gives you something to talk about at the beginning. And, you know, do you have any current links with the NDA? So that's about relationship building. The other thing that first session is crucial for is about establishing clear boundaries. Now, confidentiality is a really important one, because you have the potential to share confidential information about your organisation and your clients, and your mentor has the potential to share confidential information about their organisation and their clients. Your client may be one of their competitors. So there's a potential there for a conflict of interest. There's a potential there for things that are inappropriate to be shared. So it's a really interesting and important discussion to have about what can we talk about, what won't we talk about, and what can we share and who can we share that with. Also things like, what do you expect from the other person? So if you want feedback on particular things, let your mentor know, tell them what feedback you want, talk about when you might give feedback. They may want feedback on their mentoring. And then about anticipated outcomes, so that's about your goals, what you aspire to from the relationship. As Sam was saying, those practicalities, so practicalities around the first session and also future sessions as well. Are they happy to be contacted between sessions? And interesting, the issue of sensitive or difficult issues. Feedback we had from mentors last year were many SMEs are family businesses, and therefore you have very personal issues and personal relationships that impact on how the business is growing or progressing. Now, these are mentors, they're not trained counsellors, they're not relationship counsellors. So talking about how you might address those sensitive issues is another important point. So how do you talk about the relationships within the family, and keeping it strictly business-like and problem solving can often help in that situation. So just a very brief outline of that first session. Thing to do beforehand in terms of preparing, so think about identifying what you want to achieve, agree your meeting time, your venue, whether it's going to be at your place or somewhere neutral, for example. With the meeting, make introductions and agree the expectations of how long it's going to take, and stick to timings as far as possible, so respect each other's boundaries from that perspective. And what I found very, very helpful, and what we strongly recommend, is we'll send you out a ground rules form, which is something that you can look at and work through and reflect on before you go to that first session, so that you've got something to talk about with your mentor. And you can discuss your experiences, find some commonalities, find some differences as well, and where you might be able to help each other. Actions are about identifying the support that you might require, and then agreeing some SMART goals with your mentor, and then summarising and closing on a positive note. Okay. That's great. And I'm now going to hand over to Sam, who is going to tell you about what to expect next.
Thank you. Okay, as I said, we're doing the matching today. We will try and match everyone, but as I said, if we can't, we'll aim to put you on the scheme for next year. But we'll do our best for that matching. Again, I can't emphasise it too much. We've learned from the pilot scheme that getting that ground rules form in place, thought about, has been really important for the successful pairings for the mentors and mentees. And this year we probably will be nagging you a little bit if we haven't seen it after a couple of months. We'll be coming out and finding how it's going. If you have issues, then come back to me. I'll give you some contact details in a moment. So really think about that first meeting and what you want to get out of your mentor. And think about what information your mentor might find helpful, either about your business or, as we said, where you're at in career stages and things like that. And we have given the mentors a few booklets that our SME steering groups have created, whether it's frequently asked questions or innovation or collaboration. So think about what might be helpful for your mentor. We will contact you during the scheme, and so we do try and do a 6-monthly get-together. And it's evaluation of the scheme so that we can improve it. It's not evaluation of mentees or mentors because they're volunteers. So we don't measure them either. For further questions, at the moment, if you can use the supply chain at nda.gov.uk, we monitor that inbox. So any other questions, we'll try and answer them. Suggested reading, on the NDA website there is an estate overview, how we work within the estate with our site licence companies, parent body organisations, so that's there. And also, as I mentioned, the frequently asked questions is also there that you can download and have a look at. It is, as with all things frequently asked questions, we wrote it last year and things change. So some of our site licence companies have joined, and Sellafield will be becoming a subsidiary of NDA. But otherwise, the basic information is sound in terms of that general information about the NDA estate. So that's all I've got to tell you in terms of what next. I think I am going to be handing over to Tim next.
You are indeed. And we have 3 very, very quick polls which we'd really appreciate your filling in. It's really just an evaluation of this session today. The first one is, the question is about whether or not this has meant that you're clear now about the potential benefits of the scheme. If you could just give us a bit of feedback, that would be terrific. It helps us know what to do next. Okay. That's grand. Okay, I'll close that poll. There we are. So overwhelmingly, about 90% of you seem to be clear about the aims of the scheme and the potential benefits. A couple of you not sure. Well, there's opportunity to check and get in touch if there's any clarification needed. Another poll, which will also give us a sense of where you are with the process as it begins. How clear are you about how the first session will run? Do you have enough information?
And I think when we send out the form, it will become clearer as well in terms of that structure and thinking.
Even clearer. Brilliant. Okay. Okie dokie. We'll close that one. Again, that looks pretty good. Okay, looks like we've got perhaps one or two people that are not absolutely clear. And then, of course, the last one, from our point of view, is how has this particular webinar run for you? And again, apologies for the first 2 minutes. Grand. Okay. That's great. Oh, that's very good. Okay. Wonderful. Well, as I said, we are recording this, so that will be available to you. And it just leaves me now to pass over to Sam just to thank you all.
Yeah, really to say thank you for joining in today. Hopefully it gives you a good start for the mentor scheme. We do hope you get benefit from you. And we will let you know shortly, hopefully who your mentor is. And again, if we can't get you on the scheme, we will look for next year. But we really, really will try and get you matched up with a mentor. And good luck.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for your attention.
That's it. That's 59 minutes. Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.